We're a little bit after 8, but I kind of wanted to get a few more maybe in here before we get going too hot and heavy here. I'm going to give it another few minutes. But we won't keep everybody waiting just too long, because I know people have other things to do, and it is kind of late at night, especially on the East Coast. So I knew procrastination pays always eventually.
Dale, this is Bruce. Can you hear me?
Yes, Bruce, I can hear you.
Okay, I finally got everything set.
Okay, good. Excellent. Well, you know what that means is that we're going to expect a full presentation from you.
Right.
That's not the way it's going to work. Okay, that's fine.
Not tonight.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. When you think of questions, be sure to ask or post them in the chat. Now, about the chat, I get to talking and I forget to look. So somebody needs to tell me if something new shows up in there, and we'll take it. Yeah, because I want to get all the questions covered that we possibly can. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started just with some things from last week. Anybody that's watched the video, we had first of all, I closed it inadvertently, so I'm going to open it back up, and we close that. JS8 Call is back up and running. So it was down last week. So if we have anybody that's at the where do I go to download this, let me know and we'll run through. I'm not going to waste anybody's time tonight, unless if somebody needs it, by all means we'll do it. But anyway, this is a good spot to start. A couple more coming in. Excellent. So yeah, that was first thing. It's back up and running. When you go to it, of course, if you haven't been there before, it'll say it's not secure site, but I've been to it many times and haven't come across any problems with it. So no issues there. And then another thing I talked about last week, and the developer of this software actually contacted me because I didn't, he wasn't yelling at me. He's a great guy. But we talked about some things, and I do need to cover this because this is I think a great piece of software. And this is the JS8 Assistant. He calls it his JS8A. And I talked about this some last week, and it does a lot of things. You can find this at rocketmanrc.com. And he's got other programs and things that's useful for JS8, a couple others. And so anyway, this does like I said, I spoke with him. He's a Canadian fellow. His call sign's Victor Alpha 1 Union Alpha Victor. And you can look him up on QRZ, and his email is listed on there if you want to chat with him or whatever. He's very, very personable. He was kind of surprised that I was talking about his program because he didn't know that anybody had downloaded and was using it. I said, "Oh yeah, I know of a few people that's using it. I for one." And it does things that I didn't mention last week. If you can see on here, there's some of these. Hopefully, everybody can see this screen. Some of these are in bold, and that means that I have had a QSO with them at some point. And so if I highlight one of those, you can do a QRZ lookup real quick, which of course isn't available in JS8, in JS8Call. So that's a handy feature. I use that quite often. You can see who this person, see their propagation. You can look at it's just a simple click to go right to the PSK reporter. And you can see who is hearing this individual, so you can kind of see what their propagation is. And also, if you want to just see where their grid square, where they're actually located on a map, you just click the map, and it'll pop open a grid square and show you at least the big picture of where what grid square they're in. So, and then also a QSO history. This is kind of, I said inadvertently, or I said incorrectly last week that it doesn't do any logging. It actually does. And I'm going to bring this over here real quick. I just highlighted, I got KF0BQL highlighted. And then if I hit QSO history, this comes up and it says, oh, on 211, which was.
Hey, Wayne.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not seeing your JS8 assistant on my screen.
Okay.
So what you're talking about, I'm not seeing. All I see is your JS8.
Just a
JS8
regular
call.
JS8 window. Okay. Let me see if I can. Go here. Share. Is that better?
There we go. There we go.
Okay. Now I also have. Yep. I thought it would do this. When I clicked on QSO history, it brings this up here. And so this is 2/11/23, which is pretty recent. And so if you click on that, it'll pop it open, and if there's more than just one line or whatever, you can open it up and it'll show you what your interaction has been. In this particular case, I just provided a heartbeat. Let me go back to share this. But so anyway, I just wanted to point this out. And again, you go to rocketmanrc.com to get it. I highly recommend it. I have it running every time I run JS8Call. I run this beside it because of the features down here. So, and I will go back to here so we can see the business end of all this. And that's what I wanted to cover on JS8 Assistant. Another thing, are you seeing, why does this keep closing on me? Are anyone seeing my web browser right now with the time.is? Or do I need to share that separately?
All I'm seeing is your JS8 call screen.
Huh. That should be, well, we'll just do it this way. That's fine. We can do it this way. Okay, now it should be showing up. Last week I talked about when we were talking about the time differentials. If you drift more than 2 seconds off, you're going to have a lot of trouble decoding what other people are sending out, and other people are going to have trouble decoding what you're sending out. So if you want to check your clock real quick, the easiest way, I just go to time.is and click the red button, and it'll come up and tell you your time. In my case, my time is exact, but again, I use a GPS time. So, but internet time works great too. If you're connected to the internet, should be fine. Where this is kind of handy is again, if you're portable, where the time delta is. Go back and share that. Of course, I have all of the available columns showing up here because I got plenty of room to show them. But your the time delta here shows you how far off of what everybody else is doing as far as sending, receiving. So of course the goal is like this 0 milliseconds. But we're all pretty good here, except here's a fellow that's to get pretty far off. And if you don't have, if you're out working portable or something like that, your computer could easily drift off out of time. So easiest way to fix that, if you notice that you are getting this, it'll show up here, or where you see somebody else with a lot of drift on there, you can come down here to this menu at the bottom to the right of the waterfall and click on timing and go down and hit reset time drift. And that'll put you back on. It doesn't change the clock on your computer, but it does line your software back up with what everybody else is doing. So you can send and receive. This individual here, if I was going to have a chat with him, he's at a -17. So he's going to be kind of hard to get to. So I would probably come right click and do jump to the minus 1500 time drift. And then we wouldn't have any trouble decoding or, talking back and forth. But you can see up here at the top of my screen, it adds that, or puts that minus 1500 up there. So it's a reminder to me that I'm way off from what everybody else is doing. So there again, when I'm done having this chat with this individual, I could come back down here and hit reset time drift on the right hand side, and that clears the delta for me. So okay, and if anybody has any questions, sing out and unmute and tell me. I've got 3 screens going here and I can't keep an eye on all of them. I'm old and I scare easy.
Okay, so are all these features on the native program, or are they additions to from some other program?
All of the like the time delta, that's all part of JS8Call. And so the resetting the time drift, if you want to see these columns, it doesn't come default with all these columns showing. I don't remember what the defaults are, but if you just move your cursor up here anywhere in this where the call signs, age, sorry, all this stuff up here, and right click and say show columns, you can choose which ones you want to put on there, which ones you don't. You just enable them. And then if you want to sort by these, if you go, well, let's see, I'm looking for a really good signal or a really bad one, you can go up here and do sort by, and then pick the one like SNR weakest first or strongest first. We'll go with strongest. So I got a +4 here, and then a +1, and it goes down from there, obviously. Normally I just keep it sorted by time, most recent first works for me, but you can sort it any way you want. But the on the other one, JS8 Assistant, I'll go back to that just real quick one time. It is it's the one that lets you do the QRZ lookups. Like MAR-AC's got it built right into the program. This one you need this program or something like it. I've not gotten Grid Tracker to work with JS8. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It's unavailable. It seems like something selectable, but I have not got it. It works great. Grid Tracker works great with FT8, well, anything WSJTX. But yeah, so anyway, I use the JS8 Assistant mostly for the QRZ lookup, and then the show them on the map and that kind of stuff. QSO history. It kind of tells me if I have worked this person before, or if it's just, exchanged heartbeats or whatever the case may be. So, okay. And I think that's all I need to cover right now. I got some other stuff I want to talk about, but right now I want to see if anybody has any questions or would like to share their screen and show us what they got, or.
Well, I can't share a screen, but I would like to share a potential operating tip.
Okay, great.
One of the things I've noticed when I'm in a QSO, I'll finish sending my message to them, and it'll send a little diamond that says, okay, I'm done talking. And sometimes I have to wait maybe 2 minutes before his communication starts to come back to me. And one of the things I learned, because I'm a formatting freak, if you use a shift enter in the text box, right? You type a line of text and hit a shift enter, it gives you a new line, okay? So what I'll do is, before he even gets done sending his stuff, if it looks like I'm having solid copy, I'll type 3 R's and a shift enter, okay? And then as soon as he's done talking, I hit an enter key, it'll start to send my call sign, his call sign, 3 R's, and I can start typing my response. And generally, he starts to see it on the very next frame that comes back to him.
Yep, very good. Yes, that's an excellent idea. I do similar to that. I hadn't thought of the shift enter, but yeah, that would be a very valid way to go. A lot of times, if I got, of course, JS8, I don't know if it's common knowledge and doesn't really need to be necessarily, but it divides it up into 13 characters when it does send. And so if you've got 13 characters or more already on the screen, you can hit enter and it'll start sending, and then you can go ahead and keep typing. But yeah, the shift enter would, like you said, give you a new line.
Yeah, there is at least one condition where like if you're trying to send a message, okay, and you start to type a message and you let it start transmitting, you can't change it after that. You
That's true.
type in the whole message before you hit enter.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And that's one of the downsides to the I really like the whole messaging, everything he's got built into JS8, but yeah, that's very true. If if you're going to go in the message route, you got to be.
Well, and my last comment then is, when I'm doing messages, typically what I'll do is I will put a message in my mailbox for him,
Mhm.
and I leave the heartbeat with auto response. So if I hear him, I'll send an SNR, and like you showed last week, an SNR with a message number for him.
Right.
And that's worked out very well for me. If I'll hear somebody calling CQ, and nobody's answering, I try to answer, and he doesn't come back, I'll drop a message in my mailbox for him.
Yeah, trying to get, oh, there we go. Another one joining here. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. And let's see, let me deselect here. As I mentioned in last week, I just do this little thing, the message inbox, and I still have, there's been several this past week that have picked these up, but I still have several in here. Some of these are well, there's January. Okay, when I first started these, January 22nd. And they've done heartbeats many times since then. What they're not seeing is when it says message ID out here at the end. So I'm going to try to bring that up every week, just briefly, to like make sure when you're looking in this center screen here and you get a response back from your heartbeat, watch for message ID, because somebody would have. And the way to do that, anybody that doesn't know how to do that, there's a couple of ways. Well, there's really one way, but okay, Weasel's up here, so I'm just going to grab him because he's convenient. But I can highlight him and right click and say store message, and that's going to open up a box, and I want to type whatever I want to Weasel and hit OK, and so that will store a message for him on my computer. So the next time he does a heartbeat, I'm on and have auto response turned on, he's going to get that message ID. Now, if there's somebody that I'm not seeing on here and I want to go ahead and leave a message for them, I want to leave the shack for a little bit or something like that, you can deselect, but you can also add new station or group. So you can type in, let's see, AA1AA, call sign, whatever, and that will add that station to here. Now you can right click or highlight that and store a message for that person on your computer. They don't even have to be on your current feed to do that. You hit, and then you hit OK and save the message for them. So that a couple of different ways to do that as far as the store and forward kind of thing. I mean, it won't forward until they request or query for messages, but, and then if you don't need them on there, you come back here and say remove station. Yes, very good. And messaging is a large component of JS8, what I really like about it. That feature, as well as relaying messages through other stations and that kind of thing. Okay, anything else? Anybody? Got something you want to talk about? I was given a list of questions initially. This was before last week's session, and there were a number of them on here. I received a number of questions, and we really only covered one of them right early on. So the individual sent that to me. I want to make sure he gets a fair shake at getting his questions answered. And so the first one we had was, what is a basic contact in JS8? And like we said last time, I think that was, what does a QSO look like in JS8? At least a minimum of exchange of information. And we kind of covered that. I'd be happy to cover it again if we want to do that. But an add-on to that was, what is the minimum exchange and how do I use the software to make the exchange? Well, obviously you're going to call CQ. So I've got the macro row of macro buttons down here. And again, I didn't find out until recently, you can hover over the CQ and right click and send out a CQ in whatever time interval you choose. Or just like I normally do, send CQ now, but that'll happen with just, I'll go ahead and throw one out there. And anybody can see this, let me know, because I would like to get an actual live demonstration with somebody. It's always, I think, beneficial. But anyway, so you throw out a CQ, and then we had the fellow from Canada last week that made the comments about the what he does in response to CQ, and it was a good idea, and I changed it right away. I threw that out there, but if we look at settings, the reply message in reply to your CQ, and then if you put a SNR question mark, I'm not saying you have to do this, but I think it's a good idea. That way, the person that threw out CQ and you're responding to them, you should get an automated response back from them with how they're picking you up. So if it's something terrible, -17, -19, -20, whatever, probably not pursue a QSO. I mean, you can if you want, obviously, but because we talked about how to pick out a really extra weak signal or whatever. And then like on my radio, I've got notch control. So if I wanted to notch out this annoying RTTY going on next to us, I could notch that out via my radio, not via the software. But you know, then if I forget and somebody calls me on that later, no, I won't see them. So I leave the notches off on here. But so anyway, once the CQ goes out, then you would highlight the person that called the CQ and then hit reply, and then whatever, again, in your settings, whatever you get typed into your settings window for CQ reply, you can do that. Or, I mean, you can freestyle it and just go, you could select the person that calls CQ and just come down here and start typing, go, hey, how's it going in, you know, Massachusetts or wherever they happen to be. And yeah, there's no set rules behind it. It's I notice in things like Hellschreiber or well, even PSK or whatever, there's a semi-rigid, you know, your call sign a couple of times and the person you're calling a couple of times, and you know, you go through this whole thing. Well, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't really see the necessity to do that, especially in JS8 or VAREC. I don't do that. So if somebody calls CQ, a lot of times I will go ahead and hit reply while I'm thinking up what I want to type to the individual. KC6UCN is gonna, very good. Well, somebody's got to start. I don't know who. If you can't see that, let me know. But I just got a response from KC6UCN. Okay, he started typing, and we got the diamond. It says he's done there. So if I'd been Johnny on the spot, I could have been typing a response, but I'll go ahead and. Oh, he's going to tell me some more stuff. And this is where I get myself in trouble a lot of times. I'll start typing and go ahead and hit enter, and then I've doubled with whoever I'm talking to, and that's on me. That's that's just takes practice in forethought, and think about what you're doing a little bit, because sometimes I'm thinking a little farther ahead than my fingers will let me catch up with. Now I don't understand. Oh, I had the wrong one. Yeah, if I'd highlighted the right one. Now he's going to go, what? Howdy, what? That'll work better. See what I mean? You get old, stuff starts happening.
While you're waiting there, take a look on your waterfall around 19, I guess it's 1900 to 2020. What's going on with that wide splatter between those two stations? Is that two stations, or is that one station with a really bad signal, or what?
That is RTTY, and that would be RTTY 45 very likely. And what's going on between there, I'm not sure, other than it looks like maybe JS8's trying to decode something in there, possibly. I'm not sure, but they're running, since I got red on here, I got the sensitivity set on this. I should, since they're red, they're running, their modulation is very high, and they're splattering a little bit. So, I mean, a RTY contest, they may be running power, and I get that. That's to each their
All
own.
right, thanks.
Yeah.
I was just curious. It looked like somebody had a really bad signal.
It wasn't this weekend, the last RTTY contest, whatever that was, 2-3 weeks ago, a month ago, maybe. There was somebody on there and I could distinctly see their RTTY signal, but then it was like all the harmonics were crunched together right here on, and it spread out both directions. I centered on it and just to see how far out I could monitor, and it went well up. I mean, like 2.5 kilohertz on each side of their signal. And I don't know if that was their fault or something was going on with my JS8 installation. I don't know, but man, it was all over the waterfall. And
Okay, thanks. We'll return you to your regularly scheduled conversation.
I understand. Thank you. Okay. Yep. So we just did a quick convo there. And like I said, you can do it formally, no problem with it at all. You can do it very informally. I tend to be pretty informal. I'm not, I haven't been a ham all that many years. I was first licensed in 2016. Now I started out with listening to shortwave when I was a youngster, preteen, and somebody gave the family a shortwave radio. I was one of the early transistor ones, and I would listen to that thing, man, late at night. And I thought that was just cool as could be. And then I went in the Air Force in the 70s and went in avionics communication. So it's like radio was in my blood. And but then I got out of there, went into nuclear power, and it was a whole lot of years of a whole lot of hours, and I just didn't have time to mess with it. So when I retired in 2012, I started looking into it. Finally in 2016, I studied and took the tests and got through it. It took me 2 tries. I got general on the first night, and then studied, I don't know, a couple of weeks, and went back and took the extra exam. And so I haven't been at it that long. And digital just, we weren't friends for a long time. I didn't have any Elmers or anything to help me out with it. And so I had to figure out all the stuff on my own. And when it was probably 2019 before I had really any success with even FT8. And that's about as simple as it gets. So that's how slow I am. But anyway, since then it's been, just if it's digital, man, I'll try it out. And so I've made contacts on RTTY. Like I said, I do the Hellschreiber net on Thursday nights, and it's just a lot of fun. I think it's great. So, okay, and that is enough about me. Another question that went along with this is, are there things I can do with the software to make this easier than typing? Not that I know of. I suppose there's like on Windows has the assistant where you can do talk to text kind of things. So you might be able to work something there. I've not tried it. But if anyone has any experience with that, be sure to let us know, or throw it in the chat, or post the link to the previous video. Oh, I had it posted. Steve asked me to post the link to the video from last week, and I had it posted, but I posted it before Steve joined us. So I'm going to copy that real quick, and I'm going to repost it so that he can see it. Here you go. All right, so what's we got? Practices. What are the best practices to setting up software for general communications? Everybody here appears to be pretty well experienced with settings and stuff. So when I do presentations on this, I'll just cover the three big ones, and then the rest of them just play with them and see what works for you. But if you hit, if you got your screen highlighted and you just hit F2, the 3 big ones, of course, is under general and station. Make sure your call sign is in here in your grid square, and you can get by with just the 4 digits if you want. I stuck a bunch of them in there because I had it on a piece of paper in front of me when I was setting this up initially. If you want to add group calls or something, you can do that there, but it's not important to get started because you'll have a few default items. If you want to make some changes down here to how CQ is called out or whatever, you can do those, but that's up to you. Under station info, again, whatever information you're comfortable with sharing with somebody, you can put that in here. The other, there's some things over here that you can select, work with, and so forth, but the next thing of the big three is going to radio. Make sure you've got your radio. There's a pretty extensive ham library. It covers a lot of radios, or I have one laptop that I don't know why, but I can't get it to work with the ham library, so I use FL Rig on it. Same Linux on 2 other machines works fine with hamlib, but not that one. So anyway, you can select, make sure your radio or FL Rig is selected in here. Set this up. And then your audio, of course, you want your audio codecs set for your sound card, whether you're using a Signal Link or if you're using a built-in sound card like I do with my Kenwood. And, like the ICOM 7300s has the built-in, all of the newer rigs typically have the built-in sound cards, that kind of thing. Those are the 3 big ones that you need to make sure you have set correctly. And then other than that, just mess with it. That's what I did. You can learn a lot just by going, oh, nope, that didn't work. I'll go back and change that. I mean, it's kind of neat. When I discovered the UI, for instance, well, notifications, I've had all kinds of weird sounds coming out of this thing. You can turn this on. You download, go find sound files or make your own sound files or whatever, wave files. And you can get those on your computer that you're going to be using with this and hit select. And it'll open up your file browser, and you go select the one you want for when you get a CQ message received, that kind of stuff. And you can test it. And if you don't like it, you hit clear and you go back and start over and do it again. But anyway, you can have all the sounds, like VariSeed has different sounds for different features when somebody calls CQ and that kind of stuff. So you could do something very similar with this. I got them all turned off now because it ended up mostly just annoying me. But and then UI, you can change colors all around. I don't care for the default colors, so I changed all mine to something that's easier on my eyes, and you can change it to something that looks really cool or whatever works best for you, I guess. And so it's highly configurable. But that's kind of what I have on settings. Somebody was asking about the best bands and times to work JS8. I really don't use much except 20 and 40, really. For a while, I was in Texas races for quite a long while, and I stayed on 40 meters just because that's where people could find me. And so when I stopped being on Texas races, I go in the daytime, I go to 20 meters. I'll run and monitor on there, and then around gray line in the evening, I'll switch back over to 40, and then I'm on there until whatever, midnight-ish, and that's the ones I do. Now, I've seen recently in Groups IO people talking about 10 meters has been pretty much wide open, so by all means, go up and try it out. As far as times of day, I mean, that kind of follows the normal convention. You've got your higher frequencies, of course, in the daytime, and 40, 80, and 160 in your nighttime hours, just as a general rule. But I didn't have a whole lot of trouble with 40 meters even in the daytime. I mean, there were times it was a real challenge, but given the weak signal nature of JS8, 40 meters still works if you want to just pick one and stick with it, especially if you got like a Raspberry Pi or something that you're running and you're just going to leave it run. Pick a station. I mean, you can't, or band rather. You can do in settings, I don't remember where this is, but you can set up automatically switch bands at specific times of day. This is under frequencies tab on settings. You can enable the automatic switch, and then you can set those up. What time of day do you want to switch to this and that and whatever. And if your radio and antenna tuner, whatever you're using to make sure your radio's happy with your antenna, or vice versa, as long as that's good to go, because it's not, I don't know of any way to set an auto tune on this, but a lot of automatic tuners has that feature built in. So anyway, you can go to 10 for a while and then drop down to 17 and then back to 20 and work your way down through the course of the day.
Yeah, you can set the 7300 up so it'll auto tune when you change frequencies. So I know that radio you can do it.
Yeah, that I'm not surprised at all. I really need to look into 7300, I think, because I like my Kenwood, I really do, but there's a lot of things that it doesn't do that I kind of wish it did. So
Yeah, 7300 is a great radio. Everybody around here has them.
well, just about everybody I talk to has had a 7300, and the only reason they had it and don't anymore is they've moved up to FTD at, DX or whatever, one of the SDR radios or something. So there's to each their own. I mean, they're all really good radios, some better than others. I really like the KX, like the Electraft, and but I don't have any. So I'll get by with my Kenwood, and then, like I said, I use a Yaesu FT891 for portable ops, and I've got an Alenco DXSR8 that is a no frills. I take it out portable a lot because who cares? I mean, it's not a Baofeng, but it's not a lot of frills or anything. It transmits and receives, and that's really all. So anyway, there's some things about times a day in bands to work. And what are the next steps for JS8 once the basics are mastered? Here's what happened with me. I used JS8, I found it, and I downloaded it, and I figured out, because I'd had FT8 running before, so it wasn't a huge challenge to get JS8 running due to the similarities between settings. So I got it running, and I ran it for off and on for probably 3 or 4 months. And then I was watching a video, somebody, I don't even remember who it was, but somebody said, oh yeah, when we got this, and it might've been that APRS kid, JS8Call guy that set up that program. But anyway, I was like, I got to thinking, well, there probably is. I mean, there's some things that needs to be done to the software to enhance, like VAR-AC. IRAD's done a lot with VAR-AC. And so there's some things that would be nice if this would do it. So people are just going ahead and programming this stuff up. So I got to doing some searching, and I found a JS8 Assistant. I found another one. I can't call the name right now, but it was specifically for doing nets on JS8, and the learning curve was high enough on that. I didn't pursue it. It was very colorful, but that's about all.
I think that's called JS8 Net or JS8 Net Control or something like that. I haven't downloaded a copy of that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. And then I found another, the same guy that does this JS8 Assistant has one on his website called JS8 Net or something to that effect. We'd have to go look, but and it looks like it would be pretty straightforward and easy to use. That's what I use, JS8 Assistant. Well, I guess I said that, but it works well for doing a net. So anyway, the point being that there are a number of folks that have written and are writing code in supportive programs that interact and relate to it. The one we talked about last week, and I think is a wonderful idea, is the microblogging thing that's the fellow in UK is working on. I think there's probably a few bugs in that still, but that's the whole nature of the hobby is like what works, what doesn't, and that kind of thing. So and then that could be useful for so many things in MCOM, and I think it would be.
I was going to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, if you're at the end of the other questions, could you talk a little bit about the couple of the groups that you have listed in yours? Particularly, I'm interested in Skywarn and the QSO and the MCOM one. I used to be involved in Civil Air Patrol, and there's always looking for good ways to do emergency communications.
Yeah, I certainly. Let's see, where are we at? We basically have covered the questions that I had gotten previously. So, and I may come back.
The QSO group.
Say again.
Start with the QSO group, because that'll be the most widely interesting one, I think. Okay,
on the Add QSO was a discussion that took place on the group's IO page. There's a fellow in Florida, David something, last name starts with an M. I can't call it right now, but anyway, he is very disappointed in JS8 and its lack of people using it. And I understand that frustration. It is a wonderful program and could be used a lot more. Anyway, he and a couple of other individuals were talking back and forth in the group's IO, and they said, well, let's just set up does like a schedule, and we'll just get together and talk at this certain time of day and whatever. And then it occurred to them somewhere along the way. I didn't follow it real close because I don't hear several of the individuals that was involved with that. I never really see them on my feed, so I wasn't paying a lot of attention. But anyway, they said basically it would be helpful if we could have a group call that we could just throw out a signal report or something on there, and then or ask for a signal report, and anybody else that the QSO, the whole premise behind at QSO is people that want to have a QSO. I mean, that's the whole reason for running JS8 right then. So if you go to, I can just highlight that and I'll right click and go to directed messages and ask for a signal report. So anybody that has that group call in their setup on their JS8 should, I mean, if they have auto response turned on, should come back with a signal report to my request right there. And that would tell me anybody that's in that group that wants to have a QSO, that would be the perfect time. We could just start talking, you just highlight. If somebody comes back to that, they'll show up on your list over here, and you just highlight them, start typing back and forth. So that was kind of how that was born. I threw it on there, but so KN4YAV is still in the group. That went pretty hot and heavy for about 2 weeks. And then since then, there's usually, when I do that, there will be 1 or 2 show up on there. And that's great. I mean, that's what it's all about. But that's the whole idea behind group calls. Skywarn, of course, is storm trackers, a group of storm trackers. And I don't know that there's any down here in the Rio Grande Valley. Normally, when I throw out a signal request or a signal report request on Skywarn, I'll usually get a guy in Oklahoma and 1 or 2 in Florida as a response.
Okay, well, a group like Skywarn, do they have like a standard message format? I know that when I did Skywarn up here in upstate New York, we'd give a call. It was all on a 2-meter repeater, and it was, okay, my location is blah. I'm seeing winds, and you knew how to guesstimate the winds based on how far the trees are moving. Rainfall is, so many inches an hour, and you had ways to guesstimate that. Do they have things like that in this format as well?
They do. Now, I have not seen it on JS8 as a result, but I do know that I know some folks that are in Skywarn. I'm in Hurricane Alley down here along the Gulf Coast, or I'm about 40 minutes from the coast, and so hurricanes are a concern. So there is Skywarn, and then we also have areas that are obviously emergency response type individuals. I was in RACES, which is more to do with keeping state government going in the event of some kind of natural disaster. But yeah, Skywarn, they do have, to answer your question directly, yes, they do have pre-formatted like forms and stuff. If you get on into like WinLink Express, there are several pre-formatted templates for doing that kind of thing, and they adopted several of the ones for Skywarn, adopted several that's used for Aries groups and vice versa. But on JS8, it has not developed to that point. I just heard a couple of people talking about it on our 2-meter net that we have down here in the valley. A couple of times they heard somebody Skywarn was doing this or doing that, and wondered if they ever talked on JS8. So I just threw the at Skywarn up here, and sure enough, there's people, usually 1 or 2 or 3 that'll come back if I throw that out there. When I was in Texas RACES, the area I'm in, we were in District 21 of Region 5, which doesn't mean anything to anybody if you're not in RACES, but it's a way to locate where different people are. So I had an at TX RACES group call, and it's still in use. I don't have it on here since I'm not a member now, but and then I also had a D21 D21 races group call. And so I could throw that out, just ask for a signal report and see what other members were actually had the radio turned on and was on the same band and that kind of thing running JS8, because we were working on adopting that into the MCOM toolkit for races. And we got quite a ways with that. Even the official out of Austin, Texas, the head office, I used to work for Texas Department of Emergency Management at TDM, which is responsible for the races group in Texas, and their head office is in Austin. And the folks up there that run that actually added a couple of JS8Call frequencies to their MCOM list as far as contacting people. If something hits the fan, you need to get a message out, or you need to receive messages one way or another. So the JS8Call was one of the means. It wasn't primary, but it was one of the means of getting messages moved around. So that's really a neat thing about the group call. And you can add that, just go to settings and put a comma after whatever is currently in your group call list. You just type in whatever the only restriction is it's 9 characters, including the @ symbol. So you get anything more than that, it'll get truncated. But yeah, you can add all of the group calls you want. My downside is I had so many on there that I couldn't really see what the rest of my who was calling, who I could hear, and so forth.
Okay, well, make sure I'm not muted here.
No, I can hear you fine.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I will definitely add the @QSO. I might add the @Skywarn, although I don't know that anybody up here in the Northeast is using JS8 for this, but it certainly would be in my humble opinion, a useful thing, because the messages that are passed back and forth are auto logged. Like your JS8 assistant, you can go back and see the messages that you sent, right? And what I've been doing, I'm in the process of trying to build a JS8 net for a group called the Night Lights. They're based mostly down in the North Carolina area. And my official title is Sir Rob of the Night Lights, but we won't go into that too far.
I can see where you could go with that.
Yeah, and they do a CW only, QRP only net on Sunday evenings, right? And well, from up here with QRP, late at night, you don't get down to North Carolina very well. So what I'm hoping to do is in the daytime, toward the late evenings, putting together a KL net, and guys could do a network on that. But that leads to my next question. We all start at 7078 on 40 meters. Is there any reason that if I were going to have a net, a dedicated net, that we couldn't move off the standard JS8 frequency someplace else in the spectrum that's not, it would have to be up in the data end of the band, of course, but something that would not be trying to run concurrently with the running, raging herd trying to do normal QSOs. There's no reason we can't do that, right?
Correct. And there's a couple of ways to do that. If that's an excellent point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. There's a couple of things you can do. If on my screen, you can see the frequency display up here. If you just right click on that, you can, right at the very top, it says set a custom frequency. And if you click on that, it'll open up this little box and you can type in whatever frequency you want. You're right. You can just go, you could go down like 4 kilohertz or go up 4 kilohertz, just like you said, stay in the data band, but go find an empty frequency somewhere and come back here and type it in, and it will go to that frequency and you can run your net. Now, the problem is once you go away from that, it's no longer in this default list here. So what you can do, and I don't know if you can, people are having trouble seeing this. Can you see my settings window right now?
Yes.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay. If you come over to the frequencies tab in settings, you can add a frequency in here. Just come down here wherever, if it's going to be, on 40 meters still, but you're going to go down, let's say you're going to go down 3 kilohertz. You would just click on that and right click and say insert, and pick your IR region. Your mode, of course, is going to be JS8, And then you can type in the frequency that you want here. It's like, so it'd be 7058, whatever, or 708 or 7075. That'd be down 3. So anyway, yeah, you could type that in and hit OK. And what that will get you then is when you come back here to your default, you right click, that frequency will show up on this list up here.
Got it.
So that's an excellent point. If you're going to run a net, if down here in South Texas, we don't have, I mean, obviously on an RTTY weekend, we have a pretty busy waterfall, but most of the time it's pretty quiet, so it's not a big deal. But especially up in the Northeast and along the East Coast, I know there's a lot more traffic on JS8 than there is down here. So yeah, that would be worth your time to go find an empty frequency and plug that in.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah, the frequencies that was picked when Jordan was building this were kind of like, I want to say best guess. That's maybe not the right thing, but it was run of the mill. You're not really impinging on any like Olivia, where people normally go for Olivia or Hellschreiber or any of the others that we've used for years. These are pretty kind of wide open. I mean, anybody can use them. You could come in there and do PSK 31 or whatever. But and I see that sometimes. I'll see a PSK signal come through on JS8, whatever. And again, I understand if you're running up and down an FL Digi or something like that, and you see an open spot, and you're in a digital port of the band, well, you're going to go for it. So makes sense.
I've been spectacularly unsuccessful in decoding anything for Olivia or Hellschreiber or anything like that. I'm running a little QDX kit radio. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I have, yes.
And it's a really good frequency shift keyer, but it don't do phase shifting. I think all that stuff is probably phase shifting, and so I'm being a QRP bigot here, and I just recently graduated from appliance operator to kit builder.
Well, kit building can be very satisfactory work, and it can also be very frustrating when you've taken something apart and put it back together the third time and it's still not working. But yeah, I've done that. I've done that for years. For several years, I was a maintenance instructor in the nuclear field, and so we'd have new kids coming in. I mean, they've got their electrical, their EEE degree or whatever, but not a lot of practical experience. So that's one of the things I'd go out and buy, little $10 kits and bring them in and make them, solder them together and make them work. And so that would end up being a good training endeavor.
It is very, very satisfying. My family just bought me a hot air gun and soldering pencil rework station. So I found this old wall wart battery charger, and I proceeded to lift off all the surface mount parts. I just had a riot of a time. I got a bunch of spare parts now.
Yeah, and that's a great way to, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm thinking about, is this only keyboard to keyboard, or can you do a group communication and talk to everybody at one time? Like if you had 5 people in a group and you wanted them all to get the same message at the same time, can you do that?
Yes, you can, as long as you're sure that they're going to be having their JS8 running on the same band you're on. You could do, like we were talking here a little bit ago, go into your settings and add a group call that is meaningful to you and the other members of that group. And you can call it anything that would be, like I said, within, as long as it's 9 characters or less, including the @ symbol. And then what you would do is highlight the group call like I have up here, and you can just come down here and start typing in your outbox, and that message will go out. Everybody has that group. Somebody's wanting in here. As long, like I said, as long as they've got their radio on, they're on running JS8, and they're on the same band as you, they will get that message. And now, and that's another good point. Thank you for asking that question. There's a couple of ways you can do this as far as a group conversation. You can send that message out initially to these folks, and then if another individual in that group wants to say something that he or she wants everybody to see, that person would go ahead and respond to that group call. But if that person is responding, let's say you asked a general, like an overhead question to the whole group, what's your favorite color? and all these different people are going to answer, but they don't really care or want anybody else to know what their favorite color is. So they would come down and find you and highlight you, and then come over and type, and that'll come back just to you. Now, I'm not saying that other people can't see it or read it or whatever, but the way the software works is, if there's something going on way down here at the bottom of the waterfall, and I'm listening up here at around 2000, if somebody's talking to, if two people are having a conversation down here on the low end, and it doesn't involve me, I won't see anything on the center screen or on the right-hand side, because my call sign's not involved. If somebody is responding to me or calling me or something like that, has my call sign in their message, then I will see, it will show up here in the center box, because my call sign was listed in there. And the software is doing that. It's making sure that I am reading, or have the ability to read what is being sent to me, even though we have all this separation in waterfall space here. The way JS8 was written is, if somebody's having a conversation, here somebody's talking down here just above, it'd be like 1050. It looks like I don't know, 1028. If I run down here and just highlight that, then it starts showing up in here. If I'm within 10 hertz of that conversation, it's going to go ahead and show up here in my center box. So I can listen in, if you will, or whatever, to see what's going on. Normally, I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff unless it just goes on and on and on. It's like, what in the world are they talking about? So I'll go over and check it out. But like I said, if there's just two people having a conversation over here, and I'm over here on the other side of this RTTY guy, listening up here at whatever, like 2125, I won't know anything about their conversation other than it's going on. So but that's
you see it on the left-hand screen right there, the left-hand window.
Yes, this is on the left-hand side is your band activity. That's the stuff that's going on. And you're right, if you just hover over it, you'll get quite a few characters of whatever they've typed recently. So if you're just curious what's going on, you can go over and not really highlight them, just kind of hover over one of the entries over on this side. You kind of, usually you can see a majority of what they have typed that's come through, as long as there weren't any missing frames or whatever. But you can also, if you want to just sit there and listen in, you can come down here and just focus on them. I mean, you can go WD4KAV. I can highlight him and say jump to 1028, and I'm going to go right to where he's transmitting. So I can sit and listen, or if I want to talk to him, then, if he's -11, so I might want to go ahead and jump there and have a QSO with him, so that we don't have, the software doesn't have to work very hard as far as finding me and making sure I'm reading what he's typing, and vice versa. I can just go down there, and it's almost like talking straight back and forth. So, but yeah, that's how I would do it. If you got a group of individuals, set up a group call and make sure they all have that group call in their settings, and then you can just go up there and start typing back and forth. Or if you just want to see who's on, you can highlight one of them and just ask for a signal report. You got the group call highlighted. You can either right click and do it, or you can come down here to directed to, and just ask for, what is my signal report? And then everybody that's got their automated response turned on, their rig will go ahead and respond to you with how they're reading you, what your signal report is to them. And then you'll know who's on there, who's listening, or at least who has their rig on. So that's
Okay,
how.
thank you. I appreciate that information.
Not a problem. I just want to make sure it's clear and get everybody's questions answered. So
Yeah, it's clear as mud. Hi.
I understand. Well, I'm available most any time. If somebody has a specific question at other times of the day, shoot me an email. You can look me up on CureZ or WinLink. I've got a one or more WinLink mechanisms running pretty much 24/7. So you can WinLink a question out or whatever, and I will get back to you as soon as I see it. And then sometimes I got to look stuff up because like I often say, I don't know everything about anything. So
Wayne,
Yes, sir.
when are you generally in the shack and available for QSOs on JS8?
My normal routine is I'm out like 10 a.m. between 9:30 and 10 a.m. in the shack, and
This-
then I'll be pretty much every day.
I was gonna say, this is all central time, right?
Central time. Yeah.
Yeah, so you said again, 8 to 10 a.m.?
Yeah, somewhere around in there, I'll show up in the shack, and then I will have, different things. I mean, I work on old tube type radios, do restoration and repair on those and that kind of stuff. So I goof around with that, and I don't have any store-bought antennas. I build all my own. And like today, I had I had an end-fed random wire up and tried it out for a little bit and that kind of stuff. So anyway, but I'm out here usually until around 10 o'clock at night. So a lot of times
Well, so you start around 8 to 10 a.m. and you're there until about 10 o'clock p.m.?
Yeah. Now I'll go in and have dinner with the YL and that kind of stuff, usually between 5 and 6 sometime. But
Got it.
other than that, I'm typically around. I've made reservations anyway. I'm going to go up to Three Rivers, Texas, toward the third week of March. And there's a state park up there. And I've got 4 days reserved at the state park. I want to do a marathon park activation. So
That's cool.
and I cut it off at Thursday. I'll leave Thursday morning, come back because I need to be back down here to get ready and do this session on Friday. But anyway, that's my goal. So, there'll be instances like that where I might not be around, but my email, I carry that in my pocket. So even the WOAD, I don't know if anybody knows about the WOAD. It's WinLink on Android. It works right now. I think it only works on Android phones, but there's an app that does everything WinLink Express does. I mean, you can do templates, you can do the whole thing. And it's a telnet that, well, if you got Bluetooth, you can do it like a TNC and use Bluetooth and use your TNC and do packet connection via WinLink and that kind of stuff. But if you're going to do telnet, I can do WinLink on my phone also. And I check that pretty often every day too. So.
Okay, well, once I get my QDX back on the air, I'll probably give you a holler.
Yep. Well, and that's good because a lot of times somebody will go, I need somebody to do some signal testing and that kind of stuff. I did that in Texas races where we're getting ready for a statewide exercise. And leading up to that, we had a lot of people that knew what WinLink was, but wasn't real sure how to go about it. That there was just questions pop up now and then. And they wouldn't necessarily think. We did several Zoom sessions getting people ready for it, but like, hey, we're all human. So it's like, well, it seems like I should do this. But then, later on they go, oh, I forgot to ask this. So people would just shoot me an email or whatever. And a lot of times I just we can just do a one-to-one Zoom and I can answer a lot of questions, just share on screen and stuff. So yeah, I make myself available when and where I can. So,
Retirement's a fun thing, isn't it?
retirement is an excellent thing. I thought I would not have that much to do, but that's not the way it works. So.
I keep trying to figure out how I had time to work.
yeah, because I did a lot of this stuff. I was still working and still worked, and back in the early 2000s, I was building websites and I was selling stuff regular on eBay and still working 60, 70 hours a week. And that's what, I'm only 27. I can't get anybody to buy into that. Okay, what other questions do we have? Anybody have any burning, like, well, this doesn't work for me, or that's there was one thing on Groups.io that just came up here in the last, I think it was yesterday, was the 10th. I think it showed up on there yesterday. Somebody asked some questions. And they were mostly answered, but I have a rebuttal. The questions that were asked is it possible to have JS8Call automatically record contacts? And the short answer there is no. I mean, there's VAR-AC's got the auto log feature and that kind of stuff, and maybe Jordan will fix that on his release that he's going to come out with some of these days. But yeah, the short answer there is no. But again, if we look at that, a couple of things to look at is we have the all dot text that is part of JS8Call, and that's automatically generated, and that is everything you receive, everything you type, it all goes into that text file. So that turns into a big file pretty quick, and you should probably clean it out or archive it or something once in a while. But also on a JS8 Assistant, it seems to log pretty much everything. So that doesn't get it to your QRZ page. It doesn't get it to LOTW. It doesn't do any of that kind of stuff. But that information is there if you want to go open those files and copy and paste into your regular logger software, whatever it happens to be, and then move it around. I mean, you can upload it and download it. I like on FT8 when I'm running that, I use Grid Tracker, and it automatically goes to my QRZ page. And then every so often, once a week or so, I'll just upload whatever's newest in there to LOTW so that I get confirmations back and that kind of stuff. So that's just how I do it. There's a million ways to do it, I'm sure, and everybody's got their own preferred way, and makes perfect sense to me. But so anyway, then it says, how can I tell if I have worked a contact before? And the answer that was given was that, well, you should see a check mark on your call activity window. And, you know, I think that's probably right, but I don't remember seeing that. I know I've worked some of these that's on here tonight. For one thing, KC6UCN earlier, didn't we have a, yeah, we had a QSO, and I don't see there's that entry, and I don't see a check.
We sure did. And I've never seen a check mark on any of them that I've talked to.
But on the JS8 Assistant, now, like I said, when I showed that earlier, you notice some of those were bold, and the bold ones are ones that where I've had a QSO at some point. And then also that piece of software, the JS8 Assistant, has brief text files associated with it. It says exactly what, I mean, our entire exchange, as far as I sent a signal report, responded to a signal report, the person called CQ, I responded to CQ, that all shows up in that file. So there again, that's not going to a logger per se, but it is available information. So you can go into QRZ, or you can go into whatever your preferred logging software is and enter that information. So, I mean, that would be kind of tedious to do if you had 25 of those to do or something like that. Like the last park activation I did, I didn't have a computer with me. It was all voice. And so it was all handwritten. So I went back to we were on vacation. I went back to my brother's house, and I sat there on a computer for 2.5 hours entering all of that. And so, yeah, auto logging is.
I would raise the comment that just using the logging facilities that are built into JS8Call right now are not that tedious.
No,
there's a TQL program that reads the .avi files that this thing generates and sends them to Logbook of the World. I'm sure there's an equivalent for QRZ. I've used it once. I think it was N1MM logger or something like that. And it just reads the AVI file and sends it out. It's really not that hard.
Yeah, and that's what I do. It just records the ADI, and then I just import that into the QRZ. Piece of cake. And then like I said, once in a while, or not regular, but usually not more than a week out, I'll also select all of those records that I've added, and I will export those and then use the, like you said, the TQL software and upload that to LOTW. So, and then every so often I'll check and see if anybody has done confirmations in LOTW and download those so that I get confirmation show up in my QRZ page. But you know, a lot of people do different things as far as park activations. A lot of people use the Hammers software, and there again, that one is great for importing, exporting the ADI information. So And I'm sure there's tons of software out there that I don't even know about. So
My only question is, how would an auto logger know when the end of the QSO occurred, right?
well, in VAR-AC, that's fairly easy because you connect and disconnect to another user. Whereas at JS8, that's not true. You just start talking. But that's really not that hard. If I'm having a QSO with somebody, see, you can scroll back up in the window and go, where was our first contact? And you can.
No, I'm saying the auto logger that the gentleman was asking about, right? The auto logger would say, okay, you'd have to have a standardized end of communications like in JT8, okay, 73 and then RR 73, that would be the time it would have to have some text string like that that could pick out.
Yeah, there would need to be a hook there that would trigger. I mean, you could do a manual as far as there's just a button right down there by your send button or something like that. You just click that and say, okay, we're going to log this. But what it logs in JS8 would be difficult. It would. So yeah, an auto logger maybe not a great idea, at least with the current way it works. But and I don't log a lot of JS8 calls anymore. I always log DX, anything I consider DX, but there's a lot of them. And sometimes I'll ask in a QSO if it's somebody that's, they're kind of far away, up in the Northeast somewhere. It's like Vermont. I could do a work to all states if I had somebody from Vermont. And I don't know why I haven't made that contact. I just haven't. But so anyway, auto logging would be a difficult way to go in JS8. The last question that this fellow answered is said, can JS8Call tell me the location of a call sign and or a QSO? And the answer was given was no. Well, that's kind of true, but you can see on my screen here, I've got a grid square column. It doesn't show up automatically, but if I click somebody and say directed message and do a grid question mark, that's going to go out and ask that individual what their grid square is. And if they have auto response turned on, their machine's going to tell me what their grid square is. So it does sort of tell me where they're located. And again, with JS8 Assistant, it's got you can look on a map. You just click, highlight the person you want to know about and click the map button and it'll pop a map up that shows you where their grid square is. So we'll see if I get a response. Yes, I will get a response to that.
Oh,
So can you show us this being decoded in JS8 Assistant? That'd be cool.
I'll pop that open. So that's N0KQX. I think I gotta make sure I share that particular screen. So there, we just had a QSO, and you see he's in bold. So here's the things I can do real quick. Here's the QRZ. If you can't see that, let me know and I'll share it. But
It's showing up fine on my screen.
okay, it pops open QRZ if you've logged in recently. But anyway, it'll pop that open. So that's a cool feature. And then if I want to see where this person is on the map, I mean, all I've really got is that grid square it just gave me. So it's going to pop this open. And that shows me that that's in Garden City, Kansas. And of course you can scroll out to get an idea where Garden City, I know right where it is, but
Can you like drag that over on the screen so we can see the map that you're looking at? Is that like a Google Maps or something?
yeah, and that's the problem. Some people can see it and some can't, but I can share it specifically. Okay, you should be able to see see the map now. And the way it when it first opens up, it's kind of zoomed into about
Okay,
this.
so he's somewhere in that square. That's good. It doesn't get much closer than that. Okay, that's cool.
Yep. Now, if they provide, if you had a way to get the next two digits or the next four digits or whatever, it probably would focus in a little bit more than that. But but it only grid square is only reported for the first 4 characters in JS8. So then I'll go back and not make that mistake again.
All right, that's cool. I'm gonna have to download JS8 Assistant and use it. I think I may have downloaded it. I just haven't used it with JS8 yet.
I bet you.
I just installed it here. I'm trying to see if it's gonna, is there anything special you gotta do to get them to communicate? I think I missed that part.
Well, let me show you. Go back here and share this screen, and I want to make sure that you can see my settings window. If you can't, okay. In settings, you go over to the reporting tab and you want to enable, and I don't remember whether it's the UDP, it's one of these two, but I just enabled them all. I think it's the UDP side. But if you just enable those, leave these numbers default, because that's what JS8 Assistant is looking to see. They want the correct port number and that kind of stuff. So these numbers are valid as far as what JS8 Assistant's looking for. And the 127.0.0.1 is kind of a generic.
It's the local, it's talking to the local, just like local host on the web browser.
Exactly. Yep. Same deal. So yeah, just make sure those, and again, I just enabled all 4 of them and it works. And then while we're here, make sure that your APRS stuff is enabled as well, because it doesn't cost you anything and it helps other people out. So the thing about APRS is, even if you don't use it, if your rig picks up somebody, I'll just throw out one here. If somebody wants to do something like report their location to get on the APRS map, the APRS.fi, you just come in and do a command like this at APRSIS and then list your grid. You put that on there and it'll go ahead and transmit that out. Well, that's not going to anyone, that's going to a server. So you're not actually talking to anybody, but what happens is anybody else that can hear my signal, and they have that APRSIS enabled in their settings, their rig will pick that up, and if they're tied to the internet, they will go ahead and forward that message onto the internet, so it goes to the APRSIS server, and then that'll show up. Your location will show up on there. And this works for messaging. I talked about this a little bit last week. The fellow that did the JS8Call software, you can go to his GitHub page and download that, but you can send text messages, short ones, and short emails using this method. It goes out to @APRSIS, and then there's a specific command structure that you copy out of that other program and paste in here and hit send. And anybody that hears that will be able to. A lot of times, if you go to, I don't know if we can pop that over. Share this, but I'm going to go with your sites. Yes, as it wakes up. Okay, I want to share the specific page so that
I think my system froze up.
Yeah, Rob Cole is
That's working.
Okay. Maybe Wayne's froze up because he hasn't moved in a while.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think I hear a noise.
Yeah, but his waterfall isn't moving.
Yep. His froze up.
You know what, James, I don't know if you were the guy asking about the auto logger, but I saw something in his settings. Their N1MM logger. And there's a way you can turn it on somewhere down those settings, and it listens to one of those UDP ports. I think that's how Grid Tracker does my FT8 auto logging. Okay, or something along those lines. So maybe we might want to play with that, because you would have to do the manual logging in this program. But as soon as you hit the log button, it would automatically get sent to N1MM, which would then upload it to wherever.
Looks like he's moving again now.
Yep,
Oh.
he's back.
There,
I'm back.
there goes the waterfall.
We're way over time. I wasn't paying attention. We're way past our hour, but I'm okay with it if you are. Can you
won't
see
tell.
can you see the APRS map up here?
No,
Let me re-share it.
okay, there it is.
If we zoom in here, here's where I reported myself a little while ago, or just a few minutes ago. It popped me onto that map, and that happened via the APRS IS server. And so what we can do is you can look at raw packets over here on the right hand side of the map and look for KN2Z. And this is what happened. The most recent we had, let's see, KB6CYN reported it, KB4EOC reported it, N5UI reported. So all of these people heard me and sent that via the internet to APRS. Now APRS server takes the first one that comes in and disregards any subsequent ones. But that's one way to get a message out. If there's a, oh my goodness, we gotta make sure somebody knows where we're at, or something like that. That's one.
You could almost use this like an RBN, reverse beacon network.
Yep.
If you could get it to if you could get the system to post you were heard by these stations on this time frame, and populate those on a map like reverse beacon network does, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Yep. And that's, I think, very similar to the way this works. I was just reading about reverse beacon network earlier today. I'm going to experiment with some slot antennas, and so there's some cautions you have to take to make sure you're not interfering with the RBN network. I don't like being yelled at. Anyway, that's what I know about APRS. And
This has been cool.
I am not opposed to hanging out for a little longer, but we are well past our hour, and so I'm okay with saving some things for next week as well. If
This
nobody,
has been definitely feeding from the fire hose.
yeah, I understand, and that's why I try to make myself available. If questions do come up somewhere down the road, it's like, oh, I need this, maybe collect up one or two questions or something. But even if it's just, I need to know this to move forward on whatever I'm working on here, shoot me an email, because I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But anyway, all right, I think we'll call it for tonight then, and we will do this again next Friday night.
One big thumb up.
Thank you very much.